Good morning. Oh, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good whatever time of day it is. Thank you for tuning in to the Conversations with Dr. Don show. The show is produced and broadcast from the Portland, Oregon area. And for your first-time viewers, Conversations with Dr. Don is an ongoing series of one-hour standalone talk shows where I interview interesting people like most of you out there about who they are as unique, kind of one-of-a-kind individuals, and about whatever it is we have decided to talk about. And tonight we'll be talking about humanists Al and Helen Christians on living lovingly. I wanted to be sure I got that correctly. Living lovingly, that's so important. You know, it's one of my favorite topics anyhow. How are you feeling right now?
I'm feeling scared to death of the news today.
The news today.
The news today.
We'll have to get to that a little later on.
It's pretty. You know, could be hostilities with Korea in the works.
Yeah. Scared to death. I'm in denial. I would be scared to death if I let myself experience what. And how about you, Helen?
Oh, I'm fine. A little nervous. I've never done anything like this before, so this is a new experience, and I'm really looking forward to it.
In about 2 or 3 minutes, you'll forget there's a
I
camera
know,
here.
but we've talked many times, and so I'm just going to just talk to you. That'll be fun.
And I've known my guests here, Big Al Christians and Helen Christians, for many, many years as fellow humanists. So if you're looking for serious controversy or argument, we will have it here. This is a kumbaya moment, this hour here.
Nice.
Don't start, Al. And what's surprising about you, uniquely surprising about you, Big Al, is that there's some things that come out of you that are unexpected. Not radical, but unexpected, because it shows there's a fertile thing working there that shows your creativity and your spontaneity, and I love that about you. And when this is over, I want to feel the same way about you.
Okay. I hope so. I hope so.
All right. As you know, the first part of the show, maybe 20 minutes, 15 minutes, sometimes even 35 minutes, depending on how interesting you two are about who you are personally. And the second half of the show will be on other things which will come up with the questions that we're going to be asking you. And as you know, if I ask you a question and you don't want to answer, you can tell me to get lost or whatever.
Sure.
And this is a family show, so no swearing or sticking your tongue out of the camera. Okay, who shall be my first victim this evening? I mean, my first, yes.
You want me to?
Ladies first.
All right. Okay.
All right. If I were to ask your best friend, who is Helen Christians, what would your best friend say? Be your best friend. Helen is?
I think most people would just say, Helen's a nice person. I think that's kind of something they'd say. I just try to be friendly. I try to listen to my friends. It's important. I think that's what they'd say.
That's what your best friend would say.
I think so.
How many best friends do you have?
I have a few. I have been blessed with many, many good friends all over the country. I don't collect things. I collect people. I keep in contact with people. It's important to me, and so the people that are in my life, I try to keep in touch with them, and with notes and emails and little gifts and things like that.
You've been doing that for some time?
Since I was a teacher back many, many years ago. I taught 6th grade in a little rural community south of Buffalo, and I taught with several other young women, and we've stayed in touch for many, many years. We were they were the girls that settled down and did bought houses and those, and then there were us, and we just kind of had a great time, and most of us are out of education now. I left education, so did my friend Diane, and a couple of them stayed in education. But it was a great time to be young and single.
Did any of the other women in your peer group choose weird husbands like you did with Big Al? Yeah.
We've all married very unique, wonderful guys. Yeah.
I'm not going to get you on that one.
No, we've all married really nice guys.
And you mentioned you were born in New York, huh?
Yeah, Buffalo, New York. I lived in a small community called Elma, New York, with my mom and dad and my sister and brother. And we lived on a 3 acres. It was like a vegetable farm, and we raised chickens. And my dad worked in the city, so he would leave in the summer. He'd leave, and he'd leave this list of chores we all had to get done. But he would say, I'm leaving you in paradise. I'm leaving you. He really thought it was paradise. Of course, he was gone. And but the neighbor kids would help us get all the farm work done, so we could play, and a lot of freedom. When I was really little, I was maybe 6. I think I was 6 years old. My dad had gone on this adventure with us. He used to go on these walks with us, and we found this giant, I mean, really giant stone. It was this giant stone we found several miles away from the house. And I came back with my dad, and we came back and we were telling everybody. And my best little buddy, Billy Henry, he didn't believe me. And we had we found this giant stone. And so we told our moms. All the moms are coffee clutching in there, and we say, I'm going to take Billy to Big Stone, because we had all these tiny little places that were within 100 yards of the house that we had named. And my mom says, all the moms said, yeah, sure. And as I'm leaving, she says, oh, and take your brother, who at the time was 2 years old. So my little brother, who was 2, myself, 6, and Billy, who was 6, we go off far, far, far away from the house. And we found a stone, and we played, and it became this ritual to go there. I mean, it became a really rich part of our childhood. But the first time we went by ourselves, we were really little. And the mothers, of course, back then the moms all wore dresses. They all had their dresses. And I hear this, Billy, Helen, and they were sure that we were dead, and sure that we were lost forever. And they have these mason jars full of water, and their moms are just crying and so happy to see us. And what was really funny is, like, Billy and I looked at them like, they're really weird. We're fine. We can get home. And most of the other kids in our neighborhood really stayed in Buffalo, stayed in Elma, didn't go. And it was Billy and I moved away. I mean, we moved far away from the community, which I think I kind of wonder, was that because we had that adventure when we were really little, and we're fine? We found it.
Nothing more after this, huh?
Right. Yeah. No. It was. We had our adventure, and we left Buffalo. We both moved away and lived, in other lands. Okay. But it was I had a very, very good childhood, a lot of freedom and a lot of love.
Oh,
Yeah.
Why were you born? Why were you born?
I was born.
I forgot to tell you, occasionally I was spring a trick question on you.
My dad was married prior to my mom. She died. My father's first wife died of rheumatic fever, heart. She had a tooth pulled and died. And he did not believe that he could conceive a child. He really didn't think children were in his life. He met my mom, and she was about 18 years younger than my dad after World War II. And they fell in love. She was young and really wanted to be with him very much. And they married, and a year later, they had me. And so that was kind of a wonderful joy. My uncle and aunt, my dad's younger brother and sister, had died right before I was born, and different accidents. My aunt was a telephone operator, and her line was struck by lightning.
Wow.
And she came home, and she was okay, but electrocution can mess up your melanin, and you can go, part of risk of electrocution is cognitive difference, insanity, trouble with your brain. And she died in a mental institution. She died of insanity, or the repercussions of this injury. And then my uncle, my dad's younger brother, was struck by a train. He worked on the railroad, and was struck by a train and died. So right before I was born, a little before I was born, my grandparents lost 2 of their children. So I think in a way I helped my family recover from a terrible sadness. And I'm a good listener. So I think part of the way I've learned to listen, I kind of picked up on that when I was a little girl, just to listen to people and help them through their sorrow.
How did you learn that listening technique from your mom, your dad, or
My grandfather. My grandfather.
He knew how to listen.
No, he talked and liked people to listen, and so I listened, and I got to spend time with him as long as. I mean, he was a great guy, and he died when I was 4, so I don't have a strong memory of. I have a few very strong memories of him as just being a really special man.
Did you bring something to read? Because I'm going to be busy with her for the next
No.
Let's keep moving
Yeah.
on. Anything significant about your cultural or national or racial heritage that's worth mentioning? Are you plain American white bread?
Yeah, Irish ancestry, but
Enough of that.
yeah.
Yeah. A religious preference today?
Humanist now.
What were
Raised
you?
raised Catholic, devout Catholics.
Been there, done that.
Yeah.
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 I went to Catholic school, and still connected to several of my classmates. Very important to me, the kids that I went to school with.
How long ago did you give up Catholicism, or did you give it up or put it in suspense, or what?
I would say, well, we were married in the Catholic Church, but in the ceremony, but we really didn't practice ever. As a family, once. Probably close to 30 years. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I got some questions about your humanism. If you're an atheist or an atheist or a skeptic or a doubter or what?
I don't want to. It's like I don't have the answers. I really don't.
Yeah.
And I honor. Our friend Janet was just visiting, who we adore, and she was talking about the loaves and fishes, and then she said that doesn't have to be a supernatural story. It's just people were willing to share, and so it's I believe in it. I don't believe in supernatural things, but I do believe in the goodness of man, and that miracles can happen out of just living and being, and sharing and helping and making decisions that put yourself second to another.
How did you get to think that way?
I've witnessed it. I mean, it's how my life has been. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I got some for you. Don't worry.
I'm worried.
And your formal education, you say a few words about that. I got you people.
Bachelor's in education, and then left education to become an occupational therapist, and graduated with a master's from Texas Women's University in Dallas.
Mm-hmm. Any other education worth mentioning?
I am a certified wound specialist, but I gained that through working in the Oregon Burn Center and Wound Center.
Oh, that takes a special kind of a human being to do that. Huh?
It is a marvelous place to work. It's a strong team led by strong physicians who honor the nurses and the therapists. Highly.
And you gave that up to hang out with this guy some more.
I work a little bit, maybe once a month, but I'm retired. I mean, I work just a little bit.
Just a little bit.
Yep.
And what do you do with the rest of your time besides working a little bit?
I've been helping at the Burn Center, the support activities. The Oregon Burn Center has these marvelous programs for burn survivors and their family members, camps and rafting trips and wilderness rafting trips. And we had the holiday party in December, and about 150 people showed up and the firefighters came and sang carols to us, and it was a marvelous day.
I bet there's a special connection between people like you and those kinds of victims, huh?
Survivors. I work with survivors. Yeah.
And if we have some time, I'll ask you a couple of stories about unique experiences with some of your survivors. Yeah. But let's continue.
Yeah, I've got some good stories. That's why I love working at Emmanuel. Great stories.
Yeah. And we know you've got a husband. You don't have a pet or a same-sex relationship.
No.
Okay. And children or grandchildren?
We have a daughter who's 30, our daughter Katie,
Uh-huh.
and she's lives here in Portland, but she lives independently. I mean, she has her own apartment, and you know, she visits on Sunday for usually we have dinner together. She's a good kid, and she's been helping out with Al's broken foot because he can't drive. So she's come and taken him places, and but she has her own job, her own life. So she's grown and doing very well.
And your political persuasion, are you left, right, center, or what
I would say
are you,
yeah.
generally speaking?
Yeah, I would say liberal. I'm a left.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And where are you on that continuum, Big Al?
Well, I really believe that I was in the middle about when I got to be old enough to vote, and the whole country has moved right, like out of sight. So that's left me without ever changing my mind about anything as a radical leftist now. That I always considered myself an old-fashioned liberal. That I thought that individuals have a right to be treated as individuals, not that groups had to have equal shares of the power, but that it was, freedoms were sold to me as individual freedoms and not as groups. But I guess I'm beginning to see that, you got to have a group to get anywhere in America. You got to organize. You got to have a gang or something. So I'm beginning a little bit persuaded in that direction to think more about a proper balance of power between groups.
Is that a characteristic of humanists, which you're saying now, about how you look at other fellow humans?
There was something that happened to me just about how you look at other fellow humans. Happened to me yesterday when we were at the Humanists meeting. We had a presentation about justice for immigrants.
Yes.
And
I remember that.
we had a video that presented the stories of two immigrants. One had been picked up and thrown into a detention center. The other one had the Immigrations and Customs Enforcement come to their door and pound on the door, trying to get them to open it so they could grab them at 5:30 in the morning. And they hid out and fled and lost their home on the run away from Immigrations and Customs Enforcement. And as I heard those stories, I thought, well, that could happen to me. And I connected with them in that I got just a little bit of a reflexive reaction of what the fear would be in me if something like that had happened to me. I was able to feel emotionally some connection to their stories, which is kind of a new thing for me. To be able to put myself in the place of someone who's so different from me in the ways that people notice right off. Oh, they've got a different accent, they've got a different color, they come from a different country. But
are you an empath?
But I'm becoming one a little bit more than I used to be.
Well, how do you feel about that?
I think I'm getting it from the Humanists, and it's pretty good. I've been in there about 15 years, 17 years I think now. But whatever, it's starting to soak in.
You like it?
Oh yes.
Yeah. What's the difference between sympathy and empathy? Either one of you can handle that question.
Sympathy and empathy.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Well, you take on. I think empathy. You take on their feelings. You take on at least you believe you take on their.
To some degree.
Yeah, you take on their feeling.
Yes.
Sympathy.
Identify with them that way, such that they know that you're feeling somewhat like they're feeling as they tell you a story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can do it with facial expressions or just little sounds that you make when you're they're talking.
Some other kinds of magical things we haven't quite defined yet.
Yeah, yeah.
But I love them when they happen. You know,
Mm-hmm.
that's why I embrace and enjoy being an empath.
Mm-hmm.
An empath.
Yeah.
That's not a word I've used.
Mm-hmm.
I got to think of another one for you.
Good deal.
See, memberships in political, social, or civic organizations that are worth mentioning. And you're both humanists, and those are good organizations. Any others come to mind for you?
Oh, we made a list of organizations to be sure to contribute to. Was that was right after the last presidential election,
Yeah.
right? When we came up with Planned Parenthood, Habitat for Humanity,
Oh, yeah.
American Civil Liberties Union.
I've been waiting for that one.
Yeah.
I've been a member of that one for 50,000 years.
And what was the other one?
Oh, OPB.
Oh, we do
Yeah.
OPB, but there
Yeah.
wasn't there one other? I can't remember.
Oh, civil.
And the ACLU, he got me.
No, the Southern Poverty
Law
Southern
Center.
Poverty
Oh,
Law Center.
yeah,
Yeah, right.
yeah. And when and where were you born?
I was born in New Jersey in 1950.
Yeah. Anything peculiar about why you were born?
Anything peculiar?
Yeah,
about why I
unusual
was
or
born?
unique.
Well, this is another transition I'm making,
Okay.
and it has to do with humanism in a way that through most of my life, I thought that I was born to express my own inherent good character, that was the purpose of life. But there's some elements of philosophy where like existentialism, they say, no, you don't have an inherent good character. You get to choose who you want to be and what you want to value and what you want to do. And the humanists, we kind of get to do that too. We talk about human well-being as our pole star of the thing that we're oriented towards promoting all the time, but we get to define that.
Yes.
But it's I guess a lot of the philosophical teachings about, well, you get to define what you want, think of it as an individual choice. But I think that the humanists, by being a group, maybe can put our heads together and work together to define it a little bit better than the individual can. That you can maybe come up with a little bit of a consensus there about what's good and what's bad, and let each of us choose why we were born.
Maybe making a jump sort of in the inherited characteristics of human species. Yeah. I dug out this wallet because I had to show you this. Really important because of what you said. I'm a card-carrying member of the ACLU. So no matter where I am, if someone
in your
says,
wallet.
I am a card-carrying member of the ACLU.
You can say, yes, I am.
Now, I had a very good friend who's now deceased, who was subpoenaed by Joseph McCarthy, Senator Joe, Tail Gunner Joe, back in the early 1950s, and he contacted the ACLU for legal help, and the ACLU wouldn't do a thing for him. And he found out later on that the head of the ACLU was cooperating by under the table with McCarthy.
I
That
hadn't
would have
heard
been
that
a-
before.
Or cooperating with Hoover, maybe it was, but
Okay.
but that they had in fact been compromised by the powers that be, and they were not really very helpful. But since that time, they've been so good. I certainly forgive them for whatever they did, but there's a plus and a minus. There's a good and a bad. There's a balance in everything, and this comes back to where I come from, which is New Jersey, and. Well, who can you trust, right? We were talking about movies a little bit before.
Sure.
my parents, I grew up in a suburban town, single-family homes almost entirely. But my parents, if you've seen movies like probably Cinderella Man about the heavyweight fighter Braddock,
Yeah.
and On the Waterfront about the docks. My parents both grew up in the area where those movies were made about, and they escaped that. But my dad later had a delicatessen back in those neighborhoods, and I worked there, so I got a little bit of a few years of firsthand experience of hanging out in those places and seeing how you can't really trust anything, you can't really believe anything, you don't know who's on whose side. You know, the local congressman was known as the mafia's congressman. The chief of police was
I think
extremely suspect. So that's part of what has the level of skepticism in me about that got me interested in free thought and humanism and such things as that.
Do you have any documentation about this behavior of the ACLU in that situation?
No, Jerry was my friend, and he told me about it.
And you trusted him?
Oh, yeah.
I'm not sure he was probably a Trump supporter.
No.
No.
But he's no longer alive. No. We can't go to the source.
No,
And-
we can't go to the source.
Yeah.
Anything significant about your racial or national cultural heritage? You agreed before that you were just ordinary white bread, huh?
Well, at one point I acquired a picture of immigrants passing through Ellis Island about the time that my grandparents did. And when I look at that picture, I feel, an affinity to immigrants and both current and I realize that, this is what I came from, people who started with not very much. And that, so that's what I see as my cultural heritage. And then another side of it is, we adopted a black daughter, and we raised her. We have a black person in our family, and so we identify with her and her struggles and what we don't really know what she's feeling about what it's like to live in America as a black person, but we have some idea that it goes beyond what we understand.
Yeah. And she's brought so much knowledge to our lives. We've gained so much as far as white privilege, and kind of opened our eyes that she's been such an asset to our lives.
So through the years, you encouraged your empathic qualities, huh?
Yeah, right. Well, for example, one thing that I feel is that when I see the particular thing I can remember is seeing the old newsreels of the lunch counter sit-ins in the 1950s in Nashville, and I think I saw that maybe at the time when my daughter was in high school, and I thought, look, these are just ordinary kids, just taking a real chance, getting their heads beat in, and they weren't doing that for themselves. They were doing that for all of us, to make our whole country a better place, to make us all more safe and secure in our rights. And that I can identify with those kids and think of, those kids are the real heroes in America. Just ordinary kids, maybe didn't have much of an education, maybe had a totally different worldview than mine. I can't even think about what it is, but I can identify with them because they had the courage to do something when they had a chance.
Mm-hmm. And knew they were putting themselves at a terrible risk. Yeah.
Yeah, now time is running out, as I suspected it would. Okay, memberships and persons from the past or alive today that you particularly look up to or looked up to? Any names come to mind? Sometimes a person has one or two names, and sometimes you got to really stretch it to find somebody who they really admired. How about you? Anybody for you?
Well, how about you, Helen?
Well,
Tell us.
well, the person that comes to mind, someone that I truly admire, my very first big patient on the burn center is a gentleman named Tony, and he was severely injured and a newlywed, and I watched him struggle, and he's a dear friend of mine even today. I know, and I watched him struggle and live and survive, and continue to have a loving relationship with his wife. So I mean, Tony's just one of several people that I've watched people survive horrible things, and yet come out the other side, giving back. They're volunteers at our Oregon Burn Center, and people that are coming to mind, Rich and Mona and Tony and Brian and Megan, these wonderful people that don't let their injury define them, and continue to live strong, happy, healthy lives, even though they are dealing with the remnants of their injury. It's been a real privilege to be part of their recovery and then survival. And we took I was a part of a rafting trip, a 4-day wilderness rafting trip with the survivors. The Oregon Burn Center sends a group every year down the Rogue, and they're in kayaks, paddling. These are people with some amputations, lost fingers,
and they're still going on.
And they're still going on these kayaks. I can't do it. I couldn't be in the kayak. I didn't have the strength. I didn't have the agility. I'm in a raft. I was in a raft with a few other people, so I was having a good time too. And they headed down this canyon. And the canyon is this known as the bubbler or something. It's just a coffee pot, they call it. And there they are, all these people that I've seen on, near death. And there they are in these kayaks, individual kayaks, going down, falling out. And I just start screaming at the guides, "God, get them!" And they're all like laughing at me, and I'm crying, and it's like, watch them, take care of them. They're just like, Helen, we're fine, we're fine, we're fine. And I realized I was the weak one at that point, and they were the strong one, the recovered one, the ones that could do these marvelous things that I couldn't do. And to have that moment, to see someone that had survived and were happy and doing great, that was a really wonderful moment. And the people that are in these survivor, the burn survivor groups are such a gift to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
How about you, Big Al? Any people from history or literature or anything else?
Oh, history, I like Lincoln and FDR quite a bit.
How about Jesus?
Well, he's kind of a whatever you want him to be, right? The
historical Jesus. Stop debating me.
Yeah.
Thomas Paine I like, because he said he liked the religion of Jesus, but not the religion about Jesus, and that
I hear you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like, what was it, Rawls or somebody said, if you take out all the parts of the Bible that are about helping the poor, it goes from this thick down to about this thick. That, there are a lot of things in there that people can agree on.
I'm tempted to ask you, what Bible are you talking about? But never mind. They're going to yell at me in a minute unless we take a break and get to other parts of what we're going to be about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Let's take a break for a couple of minutes, Mr. Director. And we are back. Thanks for staying tuned. And for you viewers who missed the opening of the show, Conversations with Dr. Don, that you're watching is an ongoing series of 1-hour standalone talk shows where I interview interesting people like my guests here tonight, Helen and Big Al Christians, about who they are as unique, one-of-a-kind individuals and about whatever it is we have decided to talk about tonight. And now we're going to talk about the subject.
Yes.
Living lovingly. Oh, I got some questions here.
Okay.
You gave me a few prompting questions, and I added a few more, and I'm not sure how much time we're going to have to cover them. What is humanism? In a layman's brief description, what is humanism? Is that a fair question? Is that you're a practicing humanist?
Well, yeah.
Probably Helen has a better
I have an. I mean, I just that that humans can make a difference, and that they can make a difference without the supernatural. That human strength is a force. I find the the word "I'll pray for you" sometimes it's like an excuse not to do anything. I mean, it's better to, if someone's in trouble, say, I'll come and grocery shop, I'll watch your kids, I'll come weed your yard, or I'll sit with you, or but to just say I'll pray for you, sometimes that's a cop-out. Not always, but
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a quick answer.
It's walking the talk.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is humanism rather species-centric?
Yes.
Yes, I knew you had an answer. Why?
Well, because we'll become something else. If we survive, we'll become something else. And then humanism will have to be replaced by something elseism, whatever we are at that point, right?
I mean, humans will
humans will evolve into something else. Everything always changes. Now, maybe what we change into would be something the humanists wouldn't like, but it'll be something that the people who come after us would like.
You believe in reincarnation, don't you?
No.
No,
well, the flavor of that, Helen. Help me.
Well, just to say that change happens, and the combination of things that makes a human today we can really like, but there'll be some other combinations living on the earth or someplace in the future that also probably deserve to treat themselves seriously and enjoy their lives as well.
Will you be aware of what you have become in succeeding generations?
No.
All right.
So yeah, for us, it's humans are pretty much all we can communicate with very effectively. We have animal friends. We have to give some consideration to their feelings and all too. Maybe even plant friends. Who knows? A few years ago I heard that from clams on down it's okay to eat them because they can't feel pain. But then somebody said no, clams can feel pain. So I don't know, but.
Let's go someplace.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. What makes humanism better than present-day religions? What makes it better than Catholicism or Hinduism or whatever? What makes it better?
I don't know if it's better.
Oh?
I really don't know if it's better. I won't go there. I think any religion, if you take the core of human kindness, do unto others as you do unto have done unto yourself. If you take the core of every religion, I think there's a way to live as a good person. And so I would never say humanism is better than religion. Because there was a time I was a religious person and I found great solace in that. But I've grown beyond that. Or not grown, I've changed.
Yeah.
Yeah. But humanism for me right now is just a wonderful way of life that there is no afterlife, so I better be as good at getting things done and making the world as good as I can.
You want to contribute to what she just said?
Oh, well, I like it.
Cool.
I like it. Now, the question of whether humanism is better than another religion, I don't know all the religions. I mean, some of them, humanists probably practice a little bit too. I don't know what the Buddhists, the Taoists, all those other people believe about the role of God on earth, role of divine forces on earth. There may be some religions that, believe in God, but he's got a totally different job description than he has in our religion. So where, people still take pretty good care of themselves and each other. I don't know.
I always liked the song Alfie.
Yeah.
What's
What's
it all about?
Yeah.
And as I've gotten older, I find I like it even more now. There's only one line that I quarrel with, but everything else is just so right on. It's a bottom line.
Yeah.
I believe in love.
Yeah.
Without true love, we just exist.
We just exist, right.
Yeah. And love goes beyond what goes on between human beings.
Oh, absolutely.
It's a relationship with other living things.
Right.
Do you believe in the supernatural?
I do not.
Not very much, no.
Haven't you heard about these experiments where a plant is in a different room, it's all lead protected, and the plan is to go in and damage the plant, and the plant shows evidence of the stress, knowing that it's going to be damaged. There's been some pretty remarkable experiments in that regard, and I'm not sure how it comes about, but I have some respect for that. And I'm sounding like one of my daughters because they're all over the place in their religions and beliefs like that, But anyhow, but I love that song.
Yeah.
What's it all about?
Yeah.
All right.
Well, Thomas
Yes.
Edison, Edison thought it was miraculous. He was very obsessed with fingerprints and how fingerprints grow back. Where
does that go?
How do fingerprints know how to grow back? And in his time, it was unknown. But now there's a pretty good idea. Science has figured that out. It was magic, but now it's not. The same for planetary orbits. Neil deGrasse Tyson gives this example of, Newton figured out that as a first approximation, planets would fly in ellipses. But what about where they pull and tug on each other and they pull each other out of the ellipses a little bit? What happens then? And Newton says, well, I can't figure that out. I think maybe they should just all go to pieces. The orbits should become totally irregular and chaotic because the way the planets pull on each other. But another guy, 200 years later, figured out, no, that's not really right. We can explain that. But he thought it was God. Newton thought it was God. He was a religious man. And so we are always learning new things about things that seem very extraordinary to us.
Yeah.
Right.
Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Yeah.
Dyson.
Tyson.
Yeah, I just wanted to be sure
Yeah. He's a
yeah.
wonderful guy. He's a really wonderful guy.
Has America ever had a humanist president? And if not, why not?
I don't think they've ever had someone that said they're a humanist. No, as a president.
And their behavior does indicate that they would be a humanist if they were to choose a descriptor for themselves.
Well, Thomas Jefferson is an example. He said that, he thought in 200 years everybody would be a Unitarian. But Jefferson wrote the Bible, which was really, I just think, one of the Gospels. He wrote a Bible, which was one of the Gospels with all the supernatural stuff taken out. The Jefferson Bible that some of our presidents have used in their inauguration ceremonies is essentially that. In addition, you have, I guess, we've had a couple other Unitarian presidents. John Quincy Adams, his father was there wasn't Unitarianism in America when John Adams was president, I don't believe, but he was kind of leaning similar way. I don't know if you could identify someone as a humanist. Maybe Lincoln. Maybe Lincoln. He was very skeptical of religion in his younger years, although some people try to say that he became more religious in his older age, but it's hard to say.
How did some of these people you're mentioning now have slaves?
Well, yeah. That's
Yeah.
There's so much that we cannot see ourselves. We cannot see ourselves clearly. We can never see ourselves from the same perspective as somebody who's a little bit removed from us. We don't know what unspeakable things we're doing that we don't know have any idea are unspeakable. You know, it's a very common human frailty problem.
Well, some of the behaviors recently about how males have treated female humans, it's just horrendous. And it's a kind of a thought that, why didn't I notice this or think about it later on? Because I'm prejudiced without even knowing it in that regard.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
How is this going to end up maybe 5 or 10 or 20 years from now as far as women are concerned? And I have no idea what that's like, but I have some similar ideas about my own bringing up. That in that sense, the feeling of being so used and abused and not being able to do anything about it.
Right. Right.
So do you have any idea, any sense about how you were demeaned or mistreated as a woman or a girl? And you don't have to answer that.
No, growing up in a time where I was, told. I mean, it was just told. There was part of the, you would never be, a girl could never be president. It was, marriage was the most important. I mean, just growing up in that environment and kind of thinking differently and being odd because of that. Although I went in traditional female roles, I kept with traditional female roles myself, but growing up in that and going against the current is very difficult, very difficult. I because I had worked in primarily female professions, I can't ever say I was sexually harassed because I was a teacher and then I was an OT, and that's mostly women have those jobs.
Yeah.
But I know it's part of. Women are less than, not being listened to. I've experienced that, and part of it is my upbringing of being quiet. To be quiet, and I mean, not around my family. I'm not quiet, but just be quiet and listen, and so not being the talk, the putting out there the strong opinion. And I think women are good ideas have been lost because women have been told to be quiet. But I think those times are changing. I really, really do. I'm happy about that.
There's something about Darwin and evolution and what's happening to this human species and as time has gone by, and some of the things you said earlier, in just a matter of a couple of 300 years, how things they become more aware of them. Is neocortex developing? Never mind, I'm getting too far out here. Yeah, a couple more questions.
It's cultural, Don.
Yeah, it is cultural.
It is, yeah. Would Oprah be a good president?
I'll be honest. I'd love to see her run a little. Not me. I don't. I mean, she was eloquent on the Globe. I heard part of her speech that she made at the Globe.
It was beautiful.
It was beautiful, and it was respectful to both men and women, which I have to give her a lot of credit for that. She's powerful. She's come up from nothing and made a fortune. And I don't want her to be. I mean, I thought no, we have enough with the personalities and the. I'd like to see someone with a little bit more experience be president, but I would love to see her be involved in politics.
Big Al, what do you got to say about that?
She has helped save the practice of reading books in America.
That's right. That's
She's
right.
and that's
the book club.
that's a good thing. I hear that she edits her shows when she has psychics on to make them look a lot more effective than they actually are.
That's showbiz.
That's part of how she makes her money.
Yeah.
But
But she supports schools. She supports education.
She's done some
She's
good
a
things.
more positive
Yeah.
thing.
Oh,
than
she
perhaps
supports
others.
education. She's very big on education. So that would be a positive. I mean, I'm in favor of many of the things that I think I'm in favor of all the things she believes in, but I just don't know about another TV personality as running for. It makes me nervous.
That's
about
just
that.
getting totally out of hand.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and just denying her creativity and her future and aspirations because she's a woman. That isn't fair, is it?
No, I wouldn't. It's not because she's a woman. It's because she's a TV personality. I've had enough of TV personalities. Yeah.
Well, if you're a TV personality and you aspire to be the president, should we not consider you as a fair person to vote in as president?
They have no experience.
I'm looking at hidden prejudices.
Yes, there you are. I have, but I think I would.
And do the same to me.
Yeah. Of course I have a hidden, I mean, I find that they would not have the political know-how, the understanding of the law, of how our government works, to be in the highest position. That would find that difficult.
Oh, I suspect that many of prior presidents didn't have the kind of learning or education or sensitivity even that you're talking about. And so I'm going to stop.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I would want to see Oprah as president either, but I'm just curious.
Right.
Well, you can look at people who've capitalized on fame that's not particularly related to their own accomplishments. Who've gotten into high office. You had some of them are terrible, like George Murphy was a senator from California back when I lived out there.
And Ronald Reagan.
Ronald Reagan was something similar. Let's see. But on the other side, you have people like John Glenn and Bill Bradley, who were pretty good senators if you're a liberal.
And Jimmy Carter.
Jimmy Carter, yeah.
Well, but
he was governor.
He was a naval officer, then a governor, then a president. So he didn't have really strong qualifications for being president, but he wasn't famous for doing something else like playing basketball or going around the earth in a capsule or making movies. He wasn't related to anybody like many of our politicians now are, just following the family tradition, and that's been about forever.
Step out of the box, my goodness. There's more than those things you're mentioning. What is he doing today? Why is he the most recognized and respected authority on fair elections all over the globe?
Right.
Does that stand for anything today?
That's what he's done after he became president is what really stands up, that he did a good job as president, and he has done a very good job of being an ex-president.
Jimmy Carter's done a wonderful job. Habitat.
We worked for Habitat down in New Orleans, and the place where he came to support Habitat was right down the street from where we were working on a house down there. So we appreciate what he did. And
did you see him?
No, it had been years since he'd been there, but
they showed us the house.
But they showed us the house, and so we have a lot of respect for him, but it's because of what he's done, and that's. If you can elect somebody because of what they've done, that's great. If you want to elect Oprah because she's gotten people reading, that's great. If you want to elect her because she's been on TV, I don't think so. Because she makes $400 million a year, I don't think so.
Well, the candidate can be expert or very proficient in all those things we're talking about now. I think he has humanistic qualities, even though he's a Christian.
Jimmy Carter, absolutely.
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
Well, if we don't stop talking, they're going to kill me.
Okay. Oh, this was fun, Dan. This was so much fun.
Thank you so much
Dr.
for
Dan.
having us.
Let's have any final thought or comment about what we talked about, or anything else on your mind right now. And Big Al, that's your camera. Look at that right there, and tell the viewers anything you want to tell them. It's up to you.
Well, we were supposed to be talking about living lovingly. We haven't used the word love all that much in this discussion, and it is very, very important.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
And that if you can love life and love people, you got it made, right?
What is living lovingly? Boy, thanks you for reminding me.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I just got out of a job, and it would have been nice to keep earning a lot of money, or a fair amount of money anyway. But I think that, people who earn a lot of money feel good because they earn a lot of money. People who don't earn a lot of money feel good because they love their wives. And that's just a heck of a lot better.
Living lovingly. What to you is living lovingly?
You know, Ale and I have been married for 35 years, and so there's a history, you know, and it's been so growing and so comforting to have him in my life, and such a joy, and but it's something that happened over, you know, I loved him when we first got married, but I love him so much more that now, you know, that we've been through hard times and good times, and richness and poorness, and it's just living lovingly with my husband is just taking care of him, and being good to him. But living lovingly in the world is just being kind, you know, just being kind to each other.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Be kind.
Yeah, being kind is so important.
What's it all about, Alfie? How about a couple of PSAs before we sign off in the control room? Okay, thanks for watching. And remember KFC, not Kentucky Fried Chicken, Dr. Don's KFC. Kind, friendly, and charitable. Be kind. And be friendly. Be charitable to you too. And you too, and you too, and you too in the control room. Thank you, and we'll see you next time. Good night.
Yeah.